Hi, everyone. I've decided that GPT is in fact magic, despite what Ed reassures us of, but we still need to build schools for young wizards and witches. I'm going to talk a little bit about my own realizations of GPT being incredible and magic. I got access to it a few years ago. I got access to GPT-3 when OpenAI had it as part of a private beta, and I was astounded. I've been in this field for more than 20 years, and the type of things that it can output just blew me away, right? So you can type in, my favorite professors at University of Pennsylvania are Chris Callison, and because I have a unique last name, of course it's able to predict my last name. But then it knows some facts about the real world, and I think we'll hear that it doesn't answer truthfully, which is 100% accurate. But what it can produce is amazing. So it has this whole simulated dialogue between me and a imagined past student where we're talking about natural language processing and the challenge that language poses to computers, and it just nails it. This is not a super cherry-picked example, and the amount of time that it can do this is really quite mind-boggling. Of course, I go in and try to do all of my research interests. So I say, how well does it do at translation? Surely it can't do translation because it's trained on all of English. And so you ask it to, you paste in an article from BBC Russian, and it comes up, and you prompt it by asking it to translate it, and it comes up with a quite impressive machine translation output that's roughly comparable to what Google Translate would do or what any of my PhD students could do with their research systems. And what else can it do? Well, you ask it of that same Russian article, well, please just summarize this for me. And it gives a short, apt summarization that's as good as any automatic summary system that we've probably developed over the years. And then it can do interactive question answering about the article, where we ask it questions and ask it to respond in English, and it does a very good job of interpreting the facts of the article and coming up with fluent, human-sounding translations. I have to say that when I started playing with the system, I had a little bit of a career existential crisis. I was saying, these are first-order research concerns, or I thought they were, and now they're seemingly easy. Maybe I can claim they're not solved, but they're way easier than before. So I started to worry. Not as much as this Google engineer who played with their Lambda system and thought that maybe it's sentient, but I have to admit that I had thoughts that I would be loath to previously admit to fellow researchers. Have we passed the Turing test? And should we think less about the tasks that we keep incrementing on for leaderboards and more about general reasoning in artificial intelligence? And then with those thoughts, I also had many other darker thoughts where I kind of spiraled off into a self-recriminatory cycle where I would ask questions like, how long would it take me to recreate my latest PhD student's thesis with this technology? Would it take weeks, days? It seemed quite crazy. And so then I started to ask, can I still make a contribution to this field? And if not, should I just give up and start writing poetry instead? But of course, I can train GPT to write much better poetry than I can do. Not the kind of doggerel rhyming verse that you'll find on ChatGPT, but if you scrape the Poetry Foundation's archive and feed it 5,000 poems, then it can give you heartbreaking poems back. So I wrote a poem for my mother-in-law who died of COVID a year ago, and it made me weep. Like an artificial intelligence system made me weep, and that just didn't seem fair. So, in my moments of crisis, I wonder, can I compete? The honest answer is no, right? And why not? I could never build a ChatGPT-sized things. I am scraped for GPUs. We never have enough. We don't have enough money to buy them. In fact, I don't think any academic institution could build a GPT, right? We have maybe a handful of companies around the world, including OpenAI and Google and Microsoft and Amazon and the usual suspects, and maybe some less usual suspects like startup companies like Hugging Face or Cohere or Stability. And then importantly for the government to consider, like nation-state owned large internet engines could probably do the same. So Baidu almost certainly could, and Yandex could, but no university can do this. No government agency could do this, and no not-for-profit research foundation could do this. So what are our options in light of that? I guess my answer to the question is, what can't be done in the era of large language models? Well, the answer is academic research. We can't do academic research anymore. So what are our options? So of course, our first option is just natural language processing and artificial intelligence have certainly been solved, so we should just stop funding them. DARPA, IARPA, NSF should just pack up and go fund other more cutting edge things because companies will innovate. And so there's of course this company that's on everyone's mind. It's the company whose AI system is going to enable this technology and it's going to sweep society. And of course, I'm talking about IBM with their Watson system, right? It's clearly this amazing thing that was transformative and has transformed society. So I certainly trust companies to do this. No, so we all think that ChatGPT is the Watson of today, and the hopes and dreams are there for it. And everyone has reacted. Everyone. Like I just sat in on a faculty panel with 60 faculty members who were deadly worried about what are the implications for ChatGPT for cheating and plagiarism and academic research and all these things. And it's really sparked a very interesting conversation and made a lot of people scared. Maybe we should just join them, right? We don't have to let the companies do the research, but maybe I shouldn't have to worry about having my own infrastructure. I shouldn't worry about having to build these big models in an academic setting because we can just rely on the company's infrastructure and their goodwill. And in fact, I'm doing that. I love OpenAI. They're magnificent. I've literally fine-tuned hundreds and hundreds of instances of DaVinci, and all of my students have heard me say, have you tried GPT-3 for that yet, as the first answer to any research question that they ask. But it feels limiting to say that we should only do what's available via an API, so that we should only be prompt engineers or that we should only be able to fine-tune models. And that seems like not quite the right scope for academia. So maybe we should consider a larger effort. Maybe we should consider what the government ought to do. And so I think that there can and should be a national investment in AI infrastructure. I think if we want to stay competitive and we want to continue to have innovation come out of American universities and allow the government institutions to take advantage of this technology, not totally reliant on the goodwill of companies, we should consider building a national infrastructure, like an artificial intelligence inference engine, a national inference engine. And I think we should invest at the scope of what it takes. We should invest $200 million a year in this institution and consider building a consortium of governments, academia, industry partners, and we've seen some initial hints that maybe such things could be successful. So Hugging Face ran a really cool big science experiment where they brought in tools in a distributed fashion from all around the world and built a large language model. And so I think if we had the national will, we could do the same. Okay, but of course, there's other things we can do. We don't have to rely on the government to hand out. So there's lots of interesting questions that still exist, right? We don't only have to think about what large language models can do at the moment. We don't only have to fine-tune models and become prompt engineers. We can explore the limits of what's possible. And I think all of my colleagues will tell you their awesome ideas on what language models can't do. And I guess I am also trying to think through what sorts of innovative things could we do in combination with large language models. So this is from an archive paper that I have with some of my PhD students on trying to build explainable text classifiers where we ask language models for things like, what does an axolotl look like? And come up with a set of phrases, a set of concepts that we could then use to classify the image rather than doing a full end-to-end image classifier, such that the output is going to be more interpretable by human users. And we can build trust in the systems and we can build interpretability and explainability into our systems. Another edge case that I think everyone will highlight is large language models are language models, right? They're predicting what's the most likely next token. They're generating probable sequences, but that doesn't mean they're doing reasoning. And you can see this clearly when they're asked to do things like mathematical reasoning or complex reasoning that requires synthesizing from multiple sources. So another thing that we've tried to do is use the language model as a translator from human language onto a symbolic executable form like code, like planning domain definition language from classic planning, and use that to then try to perform the inference. So we let the language model be the language model, and we let the solver be the solver. Okay, and so maybe GPT-3 isn't magic. So maybe it's not magic. Maybe we can continue to do academic research. Maybe there'll still be some need for me in the future. Or even if it is magic, we shouldn't forget that we'll need young wizards to come up with new spells and schools for all of our young witches and warlocks. So, thanks.
That's great.